morning, good afternoon and good evening. I'm Saskia, aka Sassy Colouring, and I'm coming at you today with a video from the Colouring Companion. We are still in full lockdown here in Ireland at the moment, so background noises are going to be unavoidable. It could be the children fighting with each other, it could be them fighting with my husband, it could be my husband trying to run away. All of these noises are going on and I apologise if you hear any of them, but hopefully they'll be fairly quiet. So what is the Colouring Companion? In case you haven't seen them before, they're a set of colouring pages, practice pages that I've put together. They're available at the moment exclusively on Patreon, but I'm doing the videos available to everybody to see how I would do certain things, how I would colour certain things, and hopefully maybe pass on some tips or tricks to you so that you can improve or just even try something different with your colouring. I am going to use different mediums from alcohol markers, Winsor Newtons, Copics to colouring pencils, just so that there's a wide range of different mediums that maybe you have at home that you could try out using the same colours. The first pens I'm going to use today are my Winsor Newton alcohol pro markers because I love them. And they're going to be accompanied by my Signo Uniball white gel pen in two different sizes. I've got a smaller size and a larger size, and they don't actually show what size they are. So a finer tip and a wider tip. The first thing I want to point out is that I'm using slightly different paper to what I normally would. With Brexit and lockdown, it's been hard to get my normal paper. And so I did find that the markers did bleed a lot more on this paper than they would my normal paper. So it's not the markers, maybe me, but it's kind of the paper as well. So as with most things, I'm going to start going from light to dark. And I'm going to go in with the colour R738 and do a very light layer across the entire lip. My first tip for today is to remember that normally when you're colouring the lips, the top lip will be slightly darker than the bottom lip. That just means that when you're colouring with markers, that you might go over, do the first base coat and then go over again with the same colour just to give it that darker build of colours. Okay, so now with Blossom M428, we're going to go from the outer edge of the lip and work our way into the centre. Now when you're using the alcohol markers, it may look like there is no difference between the two colours, but as they dry, they're going to, the colours are almost set and they will look a bit different when they're dry as opposed to when they're wet. Another tip here, I'm all tips today, if you want to blend your colours, make sure you're putting wet ink on wet ink. If you want the colours to be a lot more separate and defined, wait for the layers to dry in between. So now with our third colour, which is Winsor Newton R156 or Carmine. As you can see, this looks like it's a completely different colour to the other ones, and it looks like it's not going to work at all. But trust me, once it starts to dry, the colours really do blend really nicely and they do work really well together. So as I just said, if you're putting wet ink on top of wet ink, you're going to get a much better blend. But normally this is where the paper would also bleed because you're kind of stacking the ink on top of each other, and you know that if you're going to have something wet and add more water to it, it's going to spread. I don't think that's the problem with this paper specifically, but that is another problem when you are kind of adding wet to wet, to make sure that your paper can take that kind of medium. So then we're going to go in with our darkest colour, which is R244, the Cardinal Red, and really pull out the edges of the lips. So this is where the darkest bit of the mouth would be. Now as always, this is nothing to do with realism, although we kind of follow the same principles. This is for a more cartoony look. If you want to go with something like realism, you're going to have to spend a lot more time, a lot more colours, and go a lot more in depth with your colours to get a more realistic look. So this is where the blend will come in. I've gone back in with the R738, which is the first colour, the lightest colour. And you can see in the video how wet that is going on there. And it's just blending all those colours in and kind of mixing them all together. Because it's again wet on wet, you can see how wet it is because you can see the bleed coming through on the paper. And that's what kind of gets it to mix the colours together and give it a more natural look than all the 4 different colours kind of standing out apart from each other. So if you are following along with the swatch sheet, don't forget, one, when you're swatching your colours, to write the colours in whatever way you normally would use them. And 2, don't forget that it's a really good indicator of how your pens are going to work with the paper that you're actually using. I normally put in the colours and then forget to put what medium I'm using, so I'm trying to remember to write kind of a code, WN for Winsor Newton, C for Copic, yada yada, write the colours on top so that I know which colours to come back to. If your markers do bleed out like they have done horrifically on this page, you can always go back in with a white gel pen. The white gel pen does become your best friend and help you cover a multitude of sins, but just remember to leave the pen dry. Give the markers a few seconds, that's all they need to dry before you go back in with the gel pen. And always keep in mind the words of the genius Bob Ross: we don't make mistakes, just happy accidents. There's always a way to sort something out if you think you've made a mistake. Okay, so what I found with white highlights, and especially with lips, is that less is more. A happy accident that I found while I was colouring in all my different sets of lips was the more white you use, the glossier the lips look. And at the end I'll show you how to make like a super high gloss look if you want to give, you know, like a lip gloss look. So when going in with your highlights, think about the shape of the mouth. Think about where the highlights would be. Use strokes and dots. You can reference lips, you can reference how the shine looks on different lips. And then, like I said, if your page is kind of bled out, you can use the white gel pen to colour in the teeth or whatever to give them the nice white look again. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the Copics, and I'm going to show you a really quick, super easy 2 colours, how I would do them if I didn't want to spend time concentrating on the lips, or if you don't want the lips to take away from another part of the face. So Copic Chow RV21 light pink, base layer all over both. Again, if you want the top lip to be darker, do both lips, or the top and the bottom, and then go back over the top one with just one more coat of the same colour. That's one of the beautiful things about alcohol markers, is that you can get so many different shades with the same pen, with the same marker, depending on how many times you go over the same area with the same colour. So again, remembering to swatch your colour and to write in what colour you're using. So normally I would say have a light, a medium and a dark tone, but for this one we're just going to go slightly more cartoony, and we're going to go with a light and a dark and just do the contrast. And we're not going to go specifically around the edges, we're just going to pick out kind of just a pattern to make it, give it that cartoony look. And this works really well if you're doing kind of a manga style or anime or even a chibi style. This works really nice with. I'm not sure if you can see, but I think I've used this marker in kind of another layer in with a wet on wet. So it's got a kind of a yellow tint on it, and that must be from another marker that I've layered over. That can happen if you don't notice that there is some of a different colour left on your marker tip, but if you do see it, then just rub it on a piece of paper and it should alleviate that problem. So the next tip is that when you're going to colour teeth, we never really want them to be just white, and there are so many colours you can use to make the teeth more 3D. For me, I would never go with anything kind of like in the yellow range, because that's going to give you a yellow look to the teeth. So if you think about how you would colour white as in snow, where you want that pure white colour, the colours to go for are the blues, the greys and the purples, and that'll make your teeth really shine as white teeth without giving them a discoloration. So with the highlight on this lip, I've just coloured in where the black lines dictate that I should have the highlights. So many artists do put the highlights in for you, but if you don't like the black lined look, you can use your gel pen to colour over the black line, and so it kind of alleviates that black look and takes out the line in the highlight. I hope that makes sense. So again, I just went in with a really pale blue, and it looks darker when it's wet, but when it dries you can hardly see it. It just gives a bit of depth to the teeth. Okay, so moving on from our alcohol markers, I know not everybody likes to use them. They are what I normally use. We're going to try some colouring pencils, and I'm not going to go to my go-to Prismacolors. Today we're going to use the Black Widow pencils. So again, I'm going with a light, a medium, a dark, and a blending colour. Blending colour is the white, the Casper, and we're going to go same idea, light layer first, building up to the dark layer. So when you're working with colouring pencils, you've got a lot more time because there's no kind of restriction on the ink drying. So you can go in and spend your time kind of mapping out where you'd like the shape of the lip to go. I still always go in with a really light layer first, build up my layers, and kind of the lip will kind of take form on its own. It'll form its own kind of lines and shape as you're going along. Again, remembering that if the top lip is darker, there would be more of a highlight on the bottom lip and more shine on the bottom lip. The inside lines, so kind of the inner mouth where I am now, and the outer edges are going to be the darker parts of the lip. And where the two lips close together, there's obviously going to be a shadow there forming from the top lip falling onto the bottom lip. But again, without going too deep into kind of colour theory, it all depends on where you want your light source coming from. That what I just said, having the darker top lip, would be if the light was kind of above your head shining down, whereas if the light was directly facing you and shining directly at your face, your shadows are going to be in a slightly different place. So it's up to you. What I would say is if you have a general idea, then it's a lot more fun to kind of play around with and kind of work out where your shadows are going to be, and you might be happier with your results, especially if you're doing something like a face where you keep a consistency through all the shadows. Also, don't be afraid to use reference pictures. Get a picture of somebody's lips, a photo, or look on Google, search for just images, and have a look to see where the light would fall, where the highlights are, the shadows are, and copy them until you kind of get used to doing it yourself. The best imitation is going to look more realistic if that's what you're going for. Even with cartoon style, if you find somebody who's done it and you like the way that they've coloured it, copy it. I'm not saying steal their ideas, I'm saying copy the kind of technique and the way that they've placed their colours. You don't have to do the same colours, you don't have to steal other people's work, just mimic what they've done until you find your own style where you're comfortable. So when it comes to colouring pencils, they're much more grainy than an alcohol marker. So I do like to blend out the colours, but I also like to leave them with a bit of texture to them, so I don't like to have them blend out completely so that it's not a completely smooth finish. Normally I would colour in circular motions, but especially with lips I like to do like an up and down kind of jaggedy motion, because it mimics the lines that we have naturally in our lips and makes it just that little bit more realistic. So with our alcohol markers, if we want to blend the colours, we need the ink to be wet. So we kind of have a time limit on how long we can wait between each colour. With colouring pencils, we can build the colour. So you can introduce the colour very, very gradually, build your layers. Again, I don't want the video to be too long, so I'm doing it a lot quicker than what I would if I was colouring something, but you can really take your time and add really light layers to make sure that everything is going exactly where you want it to. And when it comes to blending, decide, do you want to blend it out so that it's really smooth? Do you want to leave the texture in? Do you want to mute the tone, so go in with a white or a blend-in stump? Do you want to add to the tone by going in with, say, in this instance, I would use a really light pink or a mid-tone light pink, not a mid-tone, light pink, to add to that pinky red tone. You can really take your time when you're working with colouring pencils. There's a bit more leeway than if you're using alcohol markers. But whichever way you are going to try, if you're going to try these, I hope you can see that it doesn't have to take you a long time to get fun results, nice results. Obviously, the longer you spend on it, the better your results are going to be because you're taking your time to do it. But it doesn't have to take ages and ages to get something that you're happy with. Okay, so that was our Winsor Newtons, Copic Chow, Black Widow pencils, and now what I would normally do when I'm colouring is do base layer in alcohol markers and go over with colouring pencils, whichever colouring pencils that I want to use on that day. And as I said, I'm going to show you how to get super high gloss look. So I'm going to speed up the video now just to keep it a bit shorter, but the process is going to be exactly the same. I'm going to use the R35 Copic marker to do a base layer, and then I'm going to go in with my Prismacolor Premiers with the light, the medium, the dark shades, just to make the lips pop more, and then I'll stop it then and sew it back down to real time to do the highlights. So I was doing so well until I got complacent and forgot that with Prismacolors, if you do swipe away what's left, the residue on the page, you will smudge everything. So I was doing really well until I just kind of got ahead of myself and got excited and smudged the whole thing. So for the highlights, we're going to again use the white gel pen. And I'm not going to use a reference for this, but if you've never done it before, it is handy to find a reference. Now, my advice would be to find kind of an art page or look for drawings with the highlights, because they're easier to follow and kind of map than what a photograph would be. Or just do what I do and go for it. Just add in these lines, kind of squiggles, dots. So the idea is that you want to give it a super highly glossed look, and that's what the white is going to do for you. The more white, the glossier it's going to look. But there is a really fine line between glossy and overly done, where it just looks like a mess. But again, it's just practice. And that's why I went a little bit mad after I done these and did a full page of the lips in all different colours. Many of them with the high gloss look, because I just love doing it. And I just had so much fun doing it, and that's, at the end of the day, that's what your colouring is about. When you're having fun, that's the goal, isn't it? So if you do want to get your hands on this practice sheet, along with the other pages that go along with the colouring companion, they are bonus pages every month with every tier in my Patreon subscription, apart from the tip jar. So if you go anywhere from the gnome to the unicorn, you will get these pages every month as a bonus to whatever else you get in the month. They're there to practice, they're there to have fun with, they're there to test out colours, they're there to take 5 minutes and just see what colours work together. As always, I've enjoyed my time with you here. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, you can give me a thumbs up and show your appreciation. But until next time, please stay safe, and as always, stay sassy. So what I'm going to do is speed up the video now because it's exactly the same process as the other ones. One layer of R35 Copic Chow red, and then over the top with a medium, so I'm going to speed up the video now just to keep it that bit shorter. The process is exactly the same. I'm going to put a base layer down with the Copic Chow, which would be R35, the red, and then I'm going to use my Prismacolor Premieres, a light, a medium, and a dark, and then I'm going to use the black for super shadows. So I'm going to speed up the video now just to keep it a bit shorter, but the process is going to be exactly the same. I'm going to use the R35 Copic marker to do a base layer, and then I'm going to go in with my Prismacolor Premieres with the light, the medium, the dark shades, just to make the lips pop more, and then I'll stop it then and sew it back down to real time to do the highlights. So I was doing so well until I got complacent and forgot that with Prismacolors, if you do swipe away what's left, the residue on the page, you will smudge everything. So I was doing really well until I just kind of got ahead of myself and got excited and smudged the whole thing. So for the highlights, we're going to again use the white gel pen, and I'm not going to use a reference for this, but if you've never done it before, it is handy to find a reference. Now my advice would be to find kind of an art page or look for drawings with the highlights, because they're easier to follow and kind of map than what a photograph would be. Or just do what I do and go for it. Just add in these lines, kind of squiggles, dots. So the idea is that you want to give it a super highly glossed look, and that's what the white is going to do for you. The more white, the glossier it's going to look. But there is a really fine line between glossy and overly done, where it just looks like a mess. But again, it's just practice. And that's why I went a little bit mad after I done these and did a full page of the lips in all different colours. Many of them with the high gloss look, because I just love doing it. And I just had so much fun doing it, and that's, at the end of the day, that's what your colouring is about. When you're having fun, that's the goal, isn't it? So if you do want to get your hands on this practice sheet, along with the other pages that go along with the colouring companion, they are bonus pages every month with every tier in my Patreon subscription, apart from the tip jar. So if you go anywhere from the gnome to the unicorn, you will get these pages every month as a bonus to whatever else you get in the month. They're there to practice, they're there to have fun with, they're there to test out colours, they're there to take 5 minutes and just see what colours work together. I really appreciate you watching the video. If you're not a subscriber already, then please hit that subscription button. Feel free to leave a comment if you think I've said something wrong or something right, or you've enjoyed it. A like goes a long way. It really shows me how much you're enjoying the videos. And please stay safe, and as always, stay sassy. Please stay safe, and as always, stay sassy. I hope you've enjoyed the video. As always, I've enjoyed my time here with you. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting subscribe. As always, I've enjoyed my time with you here. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button. If you've liked the video, give it a like. It shows me that you want more of this content. If you want to click the notification bell, that will be awesome. You'll be notified when I upload. Until the next time, stay safe, stay sassy. If you enjoyed the video, you can give me a thumbs up. As always, my lovely, lovely people, stay safe. If you enjoyed the video, you can give me a thumbs up and show your appreciation. But until next time, please stay safe. And as always, stay sassy.